It was supposed to be just another piece of frozen debris, an icy traveller from the dark edges of space passing quietly through our solar system. Astronomers had seen thousands before, but this one, catalogued as 3I Atlas, didn't behave like any object in recorded history. Moving at nearly 130,000 miles per hour, it should have swept past Mars in less than a blink. Instead, it did the impossible. Without a trace of heat or propulsion, it stopped. Dead still. Every sensor on Earth caught the same impossible data. A mountain-sized object, cold as ice, coming to a perfect halt in orbit. No deceleration, no debris, no energy signature. To stop something travelling that fast would require more power than every nuclear plant on the planet running at full force for years. Yet space around it remained silent. No shockwave, no radiation, just eerie stillness. In NASA's mission control, silence replaced logic. Equations collapsed, telemetry feeds froze, and for the first time in decades, the brightest minds in astrophysics had no explanation. How could an object from interstellar space break the most fundamental law of motion? Was this a glitch in the data, or a glimpse of something we were never meant to understand? As the object stabilized above Mars, its reflection caught the sun just once, a sharp, cold flash that lit up every orbital camera for miles. Then it disappeared from sight, as if the light itself refused to touch it. And that's when the real nightmare began. Because if natural law could shatter this easily, then whatever stopped 3I Atlas might not have been nature at all. For days, analysts pored over the data, hoping for a calculation error, a sensor glitch, anything to make sense of what they'd seen. But every number matched. Every reading confirmed the same impossible truth. 3I Atlas had gone from 130,000 miles per hour to a complete standstill in the vacuum of space, without slowing down, burning up, or breaking apart. It hadn't obeyed gravity, friction, or inertia. It had simply stopped. To the engineers monitoring the telemetry, that kind of deceleration wasn't just unheard of. It was fatal. Any human spacecraft would have disintegrated instantly under the stress. The kinetic energy alone was enough to vaporize a small moon, yet 3I Atlas remained intact, cold, and silent. One mission specialist described it as a mechanical impossibility. Another called it a direct violation of Newton. Even stranger, there were no signs of external propulsion. No exhaust, no ion trails, not even a flicker of radiation that could suggest movement. It was as if the laws of motion had been rewritten for a single object. The surface scans showed no fractures or distortion, no evidence that the sudden stop had affected its structure at all. Somehow, whatever controlled it had found a way to switch off momentum itself. In the halls of NASA, whispers started spreading. Could it be a natural event? A magnetic anomaly? A gravitational slingshot gone wrong? Every theory died under its own math. The sheer amount of energy involved should have scorched the object with heat, visible across the solar system. But it was barely warmer than the background temperature of space. That paradox haunted the control rooms. Something out there had performed a maneuver beyond any propulsion system ever conceived by human beings, and done it with precision, silence, and zero trace. The deeper the analysts dug, the more one conclusion emerged, one no one wanted to say out loud. Whatever stopped 3 Atlas was not random, it was intentional, and the moment that thought surfaced, the real fear began to settle in. Because if something can stop a mountain-sized object in space, it can move one too, and no one knew where it might go next. Hours turned into days, and 3 Atlas remained perfectly still, locked in orbit like it had always belonged there. No spin, no drift, no decay, just motionless precision. When NASA's Deep Space Telescopes zoomed in, they expected to see signs of stress or residual heat. Instead, the object appeared colder than the void around it. Even after its sudden stop, its temperature barely rose a few degrees above absolute zero. That discovery sent chills through every control room. In space, energy always leaves a trace. When meteors enter an atmosphere, they burn. When satellites break, they glow. Even the smallest maneuver gives off heat, but 3 Atlas radiated nothing. It wasn't losing energy, it was containing it perfectly. That meant one thing. Its technology, if that's what it was, operated at near total efficiency. One JPL physicist called it the cleanest event ever recorded. Another went further, saying, "It's as if the object defies entropy." Those words, caught in a leaked internal memo, sparked chaos online. Was this a form of propulsion beyond known physics? Or was it something that didn't rely on propulsion at all? Something that simply willed itself to stop? High-resolution scans revealed a smooth, featureless surface, darker than basalt, absorbing nearly all light. It showed no seams, no engines, no visible markings. Some joked it looked like an art installation left by the universe. Others stopped joking when electromagnetic readings began to fluctuate in repeating intervals, faint pulses, rhythmic and deliberate. At first, scientists thought it was background interference. But as the pattern repeated with mathematical precision, the laughter in mission control faded. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just sitting still. It was listening. NASA initiated full-spectrum sweeps, searching for any sign of artificial behavior. The results made no sense. 3I Atlas emitted bursts of electromagnetic energy across multiple frequencies, each lasting exactly 7 seconds before vanishing. It was as if the object was scanning, not randomly but systematically, every direction, every wavelength. The realization hit hard. It wasn't broken, it wasn't dormant, it was awake. And as its faint pulses echoed through the Martian orbit, one analyst said what everyone else was too afraid to voice. "It's studying us." But that was only the beginning. Because those pulses weren't random tests of physics. They were a countdown. The first clear signal came 12 hours after 3I Atlas stabilized its orbit. At 0217 GMT, receivers at the Deep Space Network in Madrid caught a faint pulse. Structured, timed, and perfectly symmetrical. Within minutes, identical readings appeared in Canberra, Goldstone, and several independent observatories across the globe. Whatever it wasn't cosmic background noise. It was organized. At first, the pulses repeated in simple intervals, 7 seconds apart, each lasting less than half a heartbeat. Then, the rhythm changed. The intervals shortened, the amplitude increased, and the pattern began to sweep systematically across Mars, tracing its surface like a scanner. It was as if the object was mapping the planet layer by layer, searching for something buried deep below. When data from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was cross-referenced, the focus of the scanning became clear, a region known as Cydonia, the same area where the infamous Face on Mars formation had been photographed decades earlier. Scientists dismissed that image as a trick of light, but now the object's attention on that exact location reignited every old theory humanity had laughed off. By dawn, the electromagnetic bursts intensified. Mars Express detected synchronized signals in multiple wavelengths: radio, infrared, even X-ray. Each scan produced readings far beyond what human equipment could generate. The precision was surgical, like something dissecting the planet from orbit. And then something even stranger happened. 3 smaller signatures detached from 3I Atlas. They appeared on radar as compact modules, each following an independent trajectory toward the surface. Their descent was flawless, smooth, steady, perfectly calculated. NASA's live feed captured their final seconds before landing. But as soon as the modules reached the ground, they vanished. No dust clouds, no impact craters, no reflections, just gone. Telemetry confirmed 20 more separations in the next 48 hours. Each module targeted different geological zones: polar ice caps, mineral-rich basins, suspected aquifers. Yet none of them registered contact. It was as if the planet absorbed them whole. Every visual scan came back blank, every heat signature non-existent. Inside Mission Control, disbelief gave way to dread. Whatever 3I Atlas was doing, it wasn't random. Every pulse, every descent, every silence seemed deliberate. A process, not an accident. Theories multiplied. Was it gathering data, planting something, searching for signs of life long gone, and then, without warning, the signal stopped. The object went completely quiet. No emissions, no pulses, no movement. For nearly 24 hours, Mars fell back into stillness. Scientists waited, hoping it was over. But 3i Atlas wasn't finished, it was waiting for a reply. For a moment it seemed as though the event had ended. The signals were gone, the modules untraceable, and Mars drifted quietly beneath the still shadow of 3i Atlas. But that silence wasn't relief, it was anticipation. Every instrument on Earth, from NASA's high-gain antennas to the European Space Agency's deep-field arrays, kept listening. And then the first anomaly surfaced. Ground-penetrating radar from the Mars Express began returning distorted echoes, deep reflections that hadn't existed before the modules disappeared. The reading suggested hollow formations several kilometers beneath the crust, lined in perfect geometric symmetry. Nature doesn't make straight lines miles below a planet's surface. Something had changed down there. Something built. Scientists scrambled to reconcile the data. Maybe the radar malfunctioned. Maybe static from the object interfered. But one comparison made that theory impossible. The new readings mapped perfectly to the descent coordinates of the missing modules. Wherever they had gone, they hadn't crashed. They had merged. An astrobiologist at JPL broke the silence in the control room. It's interacting with the planet. Her words hung heavy in the air. The modules hadn't been destroyed. They were doing something underground. The data hinted at rhythmic pulses, not seismic, not magnetic, but structured, like machines operating beneath the surface. Yet Mars showed no reaction. No tremors, no dust storms, no atmospheric change. On every spectrum the surface looked undisturbed. But to the instruments, it was alive with hidden motion, faint synchronized patterns resonating outward from Cydonia to the polar caps. It was as though the planet itself had become part of the signal. Hours later, a faint energy wave rippled through Mars's thin atmosphere, a subtle blue-white shimmer that passed too quickly for the naked eye. Every sensor registered it, but no one could explain it. It wasn't heat, light, or radiation. It was something else. A transfer, maybe even a transmission. And after that flash, everything went quiet again. When NASA replayed the telemetry, they noticed something chilling. The object in orbit, 3i Atlas, had shifted, only slightly but enough to alter its orientation toward Mars's north pole. It was no longer scanning, it was watching. Theorists began to whisper what no one dared confirm. The modules weren't probes, they were keys, and whatever they had unlocked beneath the Martian surface had already started responding. But what happened next proved 3i Atlas wasn't just studying Mars, it had a message, and it wasn't meant for the red planet. 20 hours after the last shimmer faded from Mars's sky, a new pattern broke the silence. It wasn't random noise or cosmic radiation, it was deliberate. The pulses came through clean and measured, like someone knocking on a door from millions of miles away. SETI's monitoring arrays were the first to decode it, and what they found froze every scientist in the room. The sequence began with a set of prime numbers, the simplest proof of intelligence in the universe. Then it shifted into a mathematical constant, p, calculated out to 24 decimal places. It was a language that transcended culture, time, and biology. It was logic itself, the only way one civilization could be sure another would understand. Within hours, NASA and SETI teams coordinated a response. Under Dr. Lena Ortiz, a cryptographer known for her work on deep space signal encoding, they crafted a reply, a binary pattern embedding the atomic numbers for hydrogen and oxygen, the universal signature of water, and by extension, life. The transmission was sent, aimed precisely at 3i Atlas. And then they waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Nothing. But just as the world began to exhale, the object answered. The return signal was longer, stronger, and terrifyingly clear. When decoded, it wasn't random math or symbols. It was a map. The data formed a grid of coordinates outlining Earth's continents, oceans, and atmosphere, rendered in eerie, flawless detail. But layered over that map was something no one expected: a network of orbital paths. Lines and numbers matched the frequencies and trajectories of Earth's military satellites. Someone, or something, out there knew exactly where every piece of human surveillance technology was, down to its altitude and timing. The Pentagon Space Command immediately classified the signal, locking every transmission under defense protocol. NASA's public channels went silent. Independent astronomers tracking the data were cut off midstream, their feeds abruptly disabled. Within hours, observatories around the world reported unexplained system shutdowns. Someone didn't want the message seen, but a few fragments leaked, just enough to ignite global panic online. The leaked frames clearly showed that the overlay wasn't static, it was blinking. When analysts played it back, they realized the blinking wasn't random. It was a countdown. Back inside NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Dr. Ortiz stared at the numbers repeating on her screen. The pattern was shrinking, each cycle shorter than the last. Whatever was communicating from 3i Atlas wasn't just acknowledging Earth. It was tracking it, timing it. When the pattern reached 0, the signal stopped cold. No follow-up, no distortion, just silence. But in that silence, one final data point slipped through. Orbital trajectory calculations revealed a subtle but definite shift. 3i Atlas had changed its position, using Mars's gravity to bend its course toward a new destination. And that destination wasn't Mars anymore, it was Earth. When the calculations confirmed 3i Atlas was moving toward Earth, everything changed. NASA's public live streams vanished from the web. Space agency websites went dark. Within hours, military encryption replaced every civilian data feed. The Deep Space Network, once open to researchers worldwide, was rerouted through classified defense servers. What had started as a scientific mystery had become a global security crisis. Inside Mission Control, personnel were divided into clearance tiers. Scientists who had worked side by side for years suddenly found their access revoked. Conversations were reduced to whispers, logged and monitored. One engineer later claimed that within 12 hours of the signal's transmission, unmarked officials arrived to audit every workstation. Files were copied, hard drives wiped. When someone asked who authorized it, the response was chillingly simple: national security. Across the world, independent observatories began reporting strange interference. Telescopes that had tracked 3i Atlas since its arrival were suddenly hit with digital noise data corruption that seemed too consistent to be accidental. When researchers tried to restore their feeds, they discovered government directives ordering the immediate suspension of all Mars-related telemetry. Officially, it was labeled as system maintenance. Unofficially, everyone knew it was containment. But information has a way of slipping through cracks. A handful of amateur astronomers, using home-built rigs and open-source software, managed to capture faint images of 3i Atlas as it adjusted its orbit. What they saw contradicted every government statement. The object wasn't just moving, it was changing. Its geometry seemed to shift, expanding and contracting in slow, deliberate intervals as though it were alive. Soon after, an internal memo leaked from the European Space Agency. It described structural reconfiguration consistent with vector thrust initiation. In simpler terms, it was preparing to move again. The leak was quickly scrubbed from every platform, but screenshots spread faster than officials could delete them. Panic followed. Forums exploded with theories ranging from alien reconnaissance to a pre-invasion maneuver. Meanwhile, inside the Pentagon, satellite operators confirmed what the public didn't yet know. The object's trajectory would intersect Earth's orbital path in less than 7 weeks. The impact wasn't direct. It would pass within 50,000 kilometers, closer than most communication satellites, but that proximity alone terrified analysts. If 3i Atlas could manipulate gravity around Mars, no one could predict what it might do near Earth. A joint task force formed overnight, merging NASA, the SA, and the US Space Command. They called it Project Sentinel. Its mission was simple: track, contain, and if possible communicate. But communication was already impossible. Since the last mathematical transmission, 3i Atlas had gone completely silent. No emissions, no thermal output, no reflection. It was invisible except for its gravitational footprint. In confidential briefings, one general summed it up bluntly: "We're blind, it's moving, and we don't know why." As public curiosity grew, official channels released a single statement calling the object's behavior anomalous but stable. The truth was far from stable. Behind closed doors, scientists were told to prepare for orbital interference events, a phrase that sounded too bureaucratic for what it really meant: contact. But 3i Atlas wasn't just coming closer. It was aligning its orbit with precision too deliberate to be coincidence. And when analysts plotted its projected course, one terrifying detail emerged. The alignment matched the orbital positions of several key defense satellites, including those capable of global nuclear coordination. By the time the world learned the truth, it was already too late to deny it. 3i Atlas had left Mars orbit, using the planet's gravity as a slingshot to accelerate toward Earth. Every major space agency confirmed the same trajectory, a direct intercept path that would bring it within 50,000 kilometers of the planet's surface, closer than the geostationary belt, closer than anyone was comfortable with. At first, the object seemed motionless, as if drifting. But high-speed radar revealed subtle course corrections, each one perfectly calculated. Whatever guided it was making microscopic adjustments in real time, threading through the void with more precision than any spacecraft ever built. It was as though the laws of physics were suggestions, not limits. Governments moved fast, or tried to. Classified task forces were established in underground facilities, satellites were repositioned, and yet, despite their efforts, none of it mattered. 3i Atlas emitted no signals, no radiation, no traceable emissions to intercept. It was like trying to track a ghost with a flashlight. Leaked footage from an Air Force briefing later revealed the mood inside those secure rooms. The generals didn't talk about invasion. They talked about observation. One scientist described it as the universe looking back. Another called it a mirror, one that reflects more than light. No one laughed. Oh. Meanwhile, global observatories, the ones still operating, reported faint disturbances in the upper magnetosphere, like invisible waves rippling through the field. Electrical grids across several continents recorded synchronized fluctuations, each pulse perfectly timed with the object's approach. The closer it came, the more the planet itself seemed to react. Then came the anomaly. As 3i Atlas neared Earth's orbit, its reflection reappeared, a brief blinding flash captured by multiple telescopes. When the data was processed, the object's apparent size had changed. It wasn't shrinking or burning up. It was unfolding. Panels or structures were expanding outward, rearranging into a new configuration that defied geometry. One astronomer described it as a structure that shouldn't exist in 3 dimensions. For the first time since its discovery, 3 Atlas emitted a detectable signal, a low-frequency hum, repeating every 4 minutes. It wasn't aimed at Earth or the Moon. It was omnidirectional, echoing across the vacuum like a slow heartbeat. Spectrographic analysis suggested harmonic patterns, the kind used in digital communication. But when decoded, the signal contained no message. Just a single, constant value repeated over and over again, 0. Project Sentinel's final report, now buried in redacted archives, listed that frequency as persistent null transmission. Some believed it was a malfunction, a background artifact. Others thought differently. They believed it wasn't noise, it was intent, a reset. As Earth turned beneath it, defense satellites began to flicker offline one by one. Systems designed to be untouchable suddenly stopped responding. No explosions, no interference, just silent disconnection. The same orbital grid that 3i Atlas had mapped weeks earlier was being wiped clean, methodically, signal by signal. In less than an hour, 37 satellites went dark. Then the signal stopped again. No hum, no pulse, no light. Just silence. And for a planet wired to the edge of paranoia, that silence was louder than any warning could be. What came next, no one could predict. Because 3i Atlas was now in position, suspended between the Earth and Moon, perfectly still, perfectly silent, as if waiting for something. And deep inside every control room on the planet, the same thoughts spread like wildfire. If it came all this way just to stop here, then maybe it was never travelling to us. Maybe it was waiting for us. 3 Atlas had rewritten everything humanity thought it knew about space, physics, and intelligence beyond our world. What began as a routine observation turned into a sequence of events that defied logic. A mountain-sized object halting mid-flight, scanning an entire planet with surgical precision, deploying modules that vanished into the Martian crust, and finally sending a mathematical message that laid bare the very layout of our planet. Every action of 3i Atlas carried intent, precision, and foresight. It wasn't random, it wasn't accidental, and as it now hovers between the Earth and Moon, perfectly still, perfectly silent, the implications ripple far beyond any equation. For the first time, humanity is faced with a reality that is not just unknown, but unknowable. What does it want? Why has it come? Are we observers, subjects, or something else entirely? The world's brightest minds are left with questions that cannot yet be answered. Governments classify, scientists speculate, and the public watches in awe and fear. One certainty remains. The Atlas has shown us that the boundaries we take for granted, of physics, of technology, of comprehension itself, are far thinner than we ever imagined. Whatever comes next, it will not just challenge our knowledge, it will challenge our place in the universe. And when 3i Atlas finally makes its move, humanity will have to decide what it means to confront a force that can stop mountains, map worlds, and wait. Silently, perfectly, and deliberately. Because in the vastness of space, sometimes the most terrifying power isn't destruction, it's an observation.